Have you ever felt like your own family cast you as the failure while putting your sibling on a pedestal like nothing you did was ever enough? That's exactly what I went through, and what happened next changed my life forever. Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm 24 years old. I work as a graphic designer at a small marketing firm downtown, but my family never saw that as real success. Growing up, I was always the creative dreamer, while my sister Sarah was the responsible achiever. She became a nurse, bought a house early, had everything perfectly planned out. I wasn't rich or glamorous. I lived in a small apartment with two roommates. But I had something they didn't expect: independence, and a secret savings account I'd been building for 3 years. At every family gathering, the comparisons came. It became this twisted performance where my achievements were minimized and hers were celebrated like she'd just won the Nobel Prize. If your family has ever humiliated you, hit subscribe right now and share your story below. I love connecting with people who understand what it feels like to be overlooked by the people who should support you most. For years, I kept trying to prove I was worthy of the same respect they gave Sarah. But I was about to learn their approval was never worth chasing. The real betrayal happened at my cousin's engagement party. This fancy restaurant, with the whole extended family gathered, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. My dad stood up to give a toast about family success stories. 5 minutes straight, he praised Sarah's career, her responsibility, her bright future. Then he got to me. And Rachel, well, she's still figuring things out. Not everyone can be as focused and successful as Sarah. 20 people went dead silent. Some looked at me with pity. Others nodded like they agreed. Sarah didn't defend me. She just gave a weak smile and whispered, "Dad, don't." I excused myself to the bathroom, face burning. Walking down the hallway, I overheard two of my aunts whispering, "Poor Rachel, she'll probably never amount to much like Sarah. At least Sarah doesn't need money from her parents anymore, unlike someone else." My stomach dropped. I hadn't asked my parents for a dime in over 2 years, yet they'd been telling everyone I constantly borrowed from them. They'd turned me into the family's cautionary tale to make Sarah shine brighter. Walking back to that table felt like the longest walk of my life. Everyone had been dissecting my failures while I was gone. But that was only the beginning. The next weekend, my parents invited only Sarah to their anniversary dinner at a fancy steakhouse. When I asked why I wasn't invited, my mom said, "Honey, you wouldn't feel comfortable there anyway. It's just for the successful kids who can appreciate fine dining." I hung up, sick to my stomach. But it still got worse. At my grandmother's birthday party, my dad stood up and announced that Sarah would be handling Grandma's finances. "She's the responsible one," he said, staring right at me. "Some people just don't have the maturity for family responsibilities." I'd been helping Grandma with groceries and computer stuff for months, but that meant nothing. The deepest cut came from Sarah herself. One night, she called me crying about work stress. I spent 3 hours comforting her, even helping her rehearse for a big presentation. The very next day, she told our parents, "Rachel's been really negative lately, just complaining about her life instead of doing something." When I confronted her, she shrugged. "Dad asked how you were doing." I was just being honest. That's when I started documenting everything. Screenshots of supportive texts I sent her. Records of family events I was excluded from. Notes of every backhanded comment. The final straw came when I overheard my dad telling my uncle, "Rachel will probably need our support forever. Good thing we have Sarah to balance her out." Something inside me snapped. I was done begging for respect. What they didn't know is that I'd been quietly building my own freelance design business at night and on weekends. While they thought I was still finding myself, I'd saved $15,000 and signed 3 big clients with monthly retainers. I'd already given my landlord notice and found a beautiful 1-bedroom apartment across town. I was about to show them exactly how irresponsible and unsuccessful I really was. Meanwhile, their perfect daughter was secretly drowning in credit card debt. I'd seen it myself when she left her banking app open on my laptop. 3 maxed out cards and late payment warnings. The irony couldn't have been sharper. My ally came from an unexpected place, my grandmother. One evening, she pulled me aside and said, Rachel, I see how they treat you, and it's not right. Your grandfather would be ashamed. Your father always envied creative people because he gave up his dream of being a musician to become an accountant. He sees himself in you, and instead of being proud, he resents it. When you're ready to make your move, I'll stand with you. My family grew more arrogant, thinking they had finally put me in my place. I overheard Sarah telling our cousin, Rachel's finally accepting she's just not as capable as the rest of us. My dad even joked about still supporting me when I was 40 and still living with roommates. They had no idea I was already signing contracts and planning my complete independence. The breaking point came at Sarah's housewarming party. My father raised his glass to Sarah, who proves that hard work and responsibility always pay off, unlike some people who just drift through life. I stood up. Dad, I need to say something about responsibility and success. The room froze. I pulled out my phone and read aloud. Sarah, thank you so much for the logo design. Here's the $3,000 payment we agreed on. It was the payment email from my biggest client, received that very morning. This is just one of my 3 monthly clients. I've been running a successful freelance business for 2 years. I've saved $15,000. I'm moving into my own apartment next week. And I haven't asked you for money in over 2 years, despite what you've told everyone. Dead silence. Then I turned to Sarah. And since we're talking about responsibility, would you like to explain your credit card debt to everyone? Her face collapsed. Rachel, don't. I saw your banking app. 3 maxed out cards, late fees. That's what's stressing you out, not your job. My grandmother stepped forward. I think it's time this family finally shows Rachel the respect she deserves. My father sputtered. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. I cut him off. You needed someone to be the family failure, so Sarah could look better. But I'm not your failure anymore. I placed my keys on the table. I'm done pretending to need your approval. I am successful, independent, and free of trying to prove myself to people who will never see my worth. I walked out of that party with my head held high, my grandmother's hand on my shoulder. In the weeks that followed, some family members reached out to apologize. My parents stayed silent. Sarah eventually called crying, admitting she'd always been jealous of my creativity and independence. I felt like I had to be perfect because you made everything look so effortless, she confessed. My mother eventually admitted they'd been unfair and had no idea how successful I'd become. I moved into my beautiful new apartment, grew my business into 6 figures, and surrounded myself with people who valued me. For the first time, their silence didn't hurt me, it freed me. I realized something powerful. Seeking approval from people who need you to fail so others can succeed is a losing game. My family still compares us, but now the story has flipped. And honestly, I don't care anymore. Have you ever been the so-called family disappointment who turned out more successful than anyone expected? Hit subscribe and tell me your story in the comments below. Where are you watching from? Drop it down there. I always check, and I love connecting with people who've overcome family favoritism. Your story deserves to be heard.